Hello and welcome to this episode of the Brett Campbell Show. You guessed it, I am Brett Campbell, of course, here loud and proud on the mic, bringing it to you from the Klaxon studio here at the Klaxon headquarters. What an intro that was. Today I'm speaking with another amazing guest, a friend of mine, Dale Beaumont. Dale Beaumont is a man of many talents, including an author of 19 books. Yes, that's right, 19. Not 9, 19. He's an award-winning technology entrepreneur, international speaker as well. Dale started his first business at 19 and has been building companies ever since. You may have, if you're in the sort of the business, the entrepreneur, or the expert space, you would have probably come across Dale, or maybe you've been to one of his events. He runs a company called Business Blueprint. He's just started a new event business called, a new event, not business, a new event. A new series of events, let's call it that, 52 Ways, which is the number one workshop for building your business. So 52 ways, imagine that, going along to an event, you get not one, not 20, but 52 ways to grow your business. Dale's a very switched on, smart man. And has a lot going for him. He has been featured in Forbes, the Huffington Post, Business Insider, just to name a few. We talk about a number of things in this episode. It's a shorter episode than usual because Dale unfortunately had time constraints around it. But we talk about how did Dale start writing 19 books. Like what he didn't write 19 at once, though, because that'd be crazy. But how did he start his first book? We talk about ways on how you can market a book. Should you even be writing a book? And if so, when should you write a book? We talk about what are the most common roadblocks that most business owners have as they're going through the phases of growth, from that 0 to 100K, 100 to 500, and 500 to a million, 2, 3, 4 million, etc. We talk about that. And then we also talk about I throw a new question in, a question I haven't actually asked on this podcast, so I'm going to leave it right there and just leave it up to you to go and listen. It's a good one. It actually starts and it puts the conversation into probably, second, third gear, actually. You could see Dale and I were extremely passionate about the topic. So make sure you go and check out this episode. Well, not going to check it out because you're already checking it out. You're here, so don't turn it off. That's all I'm saying. Bear with me. So before we do get into the episode, as always, please, I would love your feedback. To those of you who are leaving reviews and 5-star reviews, appreciate you. Thank you so much. Take a screenshot right now of your phone and head over to Instagram. Open your Instagram app. You don't have to go far. In fact, your thumb is only going to have to move like 2-3 centimeters a couple of times and you've done it. That's how easy it actually is to do what I'm about to ask you to do. Take a screenshot, open up the Instagram app, and then upload that screenshot to your stories and tag myself at Brett Campbell. And also make sure you tag at Dale Beaumont as well. Let them know that you're listening to this episode. We would love to know about it. There we go. Whew. That was a bit of a fast intro. I just had a coffee. So things are going pretty fast in my mind right now. But there we go. We'll leave it at that. Without further ado, welcome to the episode with Dale Beaumont, award-winning technology entrepreneur, international speaker, and author of 19 best-selling books. Kapow. All right, Dale, welcome to the show, champion.
Thanks so much.
Mate, I see you've just come back from a business mastery retreat.
Yes, yeah. Once a year, I do an event with some of my long-term clients, and we sort of do a retreat, sort of camp style, kind of cabins, and the kind of camp style food. But what we really love about it is they're just really intimate sort of sessions, and so we do some business stuff, but then we also do some yoga. We also went to the movies. We saw Ford versus Ferrari, which was really
good movie.
Great movie. Definitely worth seeing. Some really good entrepreneurial themes in there. So that was awesome. And then we went out drinking and eating. So lots of fun.
Yeah, I've seen some bow and arrows there as well. Nothing like a business meeting with a bow and arrow.
Exactly. No, that was good fun.
So you said that was the end of the year event for some of your students. Is that part of the Business Blueprint community? Is that?
That's right. Yeah. So we people get 4 conferences with us as part of their membership. This is like a 5th bonus conference. So the people that have been clients of mine for at least 5 years, and some of them have been big clients for 10 years. And so it's really just a reward for the people that have committed to their education, and see education as a lifelong journey, not something that they just do once, something that they're going to be invested in on an ongoing basis. And they've chosen to plug into our community, and we just want to kind of like reward them and show them the love.
Love it. Mate, I actually came across you probably, I'd say maybe 10, 11 years ago now. And I was actually, so a friend of mine, I think, brought me along to one of your events. So you're running live events back then. In this world, you've been doing it for about 30 years technically, but in the speaking world. And mate, one of the things that resonated with me, and I want to start here because I know when you've got a bit of an accolade like this, there's always a conversation around it. I was sitting in the audience, and at that stage, I think it was you'd published 11 books. So you'd published 11 books, and I was like, whoa, how's this guy sat down, written 11 books? Like, you must be crazy, right? But then I found and was introduced really, and I look back now and I go, the concept of leverage, right? The concept of leverage of what you did there. Mate, tell me about just firstly the impact of writing a book or having a book and what it can do for your business and your brand. So take me through that. Go back to that decision where, look, we're going to start writing some books. Here's why. And what was the impact of that?
Yeah, great question. So I started out in business. I just turned 19, and the company was doing personal development for young people, like Tony Robbins for kids, basically. And so we started out 19, and we created this weekend workshop. And we didn't really understand anything about marketing at that point. And we just thought, just create this program and it will instantly be successful. And we're in for a rude shock and realize that, if you can have the greatest product or service in the world, but unless you know how to market it, you don't have a business. And so we started to market, but as we were marketing, we were kind of faced with this thing of like, who are you guys? I've never heard of you before. We had this kind of credibility, issue. It's like, basically, why should I listen to you? Where's your cred? And so we thought, well, how do we create more credibility? Every business needs credibility. Well, one way is you could do what you do for 20 years, and then people say, oh, you've got a experience, and therefore you've got credibility. And we're like, we don't want to have to wait 20 years before we can do the work we want to do now. So then the thought came to us, how do we manufacture credibility? And we thought, well, one way is to write a book. And so that was the first book that I wrote when I was 19. It was a personal development book for teenagers called The World at Your Feet, and we marketed it as the world's first book for teens by teens, because we were still 19 at that particular point. And so we were kind of like writing, it was kind of like a message to other young people. And from there, what happened was we then learned how to turn the experience of writing a book into a press release, and we sent it out to the media. And over the next 6 months, we had more than 100 newspapers and magazines and radio stations and then television stations write about us or interview us. And we got a huge amount of exposure. And so the lesson there was gave us a lot of credibility. It got us a lot of exposure, which led to, again, more trust and more credibility. But the other thing that was really special about the whole idea of writing a book was going back to your original point there around leverage. And that was, when you're a speaker, you only can impact the people that you're physically in front of in any one point in time. But one of the things that started to happen when we released this book, we started to get letters from people and emails from people in Wagga Wagga and people in Darwin and people in Margaret River and these places that we'd never been to before, saying, I was in a bookshop, I found your book, or I bought it for my son or daughter and they've read it and they loved it and it's changed their life, and thank you so much. And I thought, wow, isn't that powerful? That books can kind of be omnipresent. Books can be in hundreds or thousands of places at any one time, helping and impacting people without you having to be there. Yeah. And so that's when I thought to myself, wow, this is pretty cool. So we did that with the first book. And then 5 years later, I kind of wanted to write some more books. I wanted to move out of just working with young people and working with people of all ages. And so I came up with this concept of the Secrets Exposed series, where I interviewed 240 of the country's most successful people in a range of different topic areas, collected all their content, put it into this series of 15 books. And I've gone on to do another 3 since then. So it's 19 books that are now part of that series, and that really helped to kind of like take my career and business to a whole new level. But essentially, that were the two big things. Gave us a lot of credibility, and it gave us impact, and we could impact people without having to be physically present.
I'm sure you get this question a lot, especially with your business blueprint and being in that expert space is, at what stage should I write the book? Like if you're a relatively unknown person, you're like, do I need to get a certain level of credibility first, or should I just write the book and let the book try and give me credibility? What's your sort of feedback or advice to people who are maybe sitting here going, I've really wanted to write a book, or should I write a book? What's your sort of thought process, thinking process through that?
Yeah, I think it's all about success. Is all about sequencing. It's doing things, in the right order and having the right tool to solve whatever problem you're at. And the thing about a book is, the book, a book won't save a failing business, or a book won't save a business that is where you haven't got that product market fit, or you've built something that no one really wants. Doing a book is just going to basically, prove the fact that the business is fundamentally flawed to begin with. So I think that you want to wait until your idea is proven and tested, and there's market demand and people are buying, and then a book is like pouring, kerosene on the fire type thing. It's going to really kind of like, it's going to blow things up to another level. But if there's no spark or no fire to begin with, then doing a book isn't really going to help. So I think that the first thing that you should do as an entrepreneur is make sure you've got something that people want and that people are willing to spend money on, and make sure that you can deliver that promise, and that you can sell something and you can service something, so you create a happy customer. And once you've done that 5 or 10 times, then for you may want to write a book as a way of launching yourself out there to more people. Or you may want, there's lots of other ways these days that you can market, obviously through social media and through YouTube and through podcasting. And so, for some people, a book could be a now thing. For other people, it could be a later thing. And for other people, that might, they can probably, with social media and all of these, amazing go direct platforms that are out there, they might get better results in that sort of short term by doing that. But then the book is kind of like just another kind of like badge that you can kind of earn, that will then put you into another stratosphere, because it is still quite crowded when you're still in trying to do the stuff on social media. There's a lot of people on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube that are trying to make noise, and lots of podcasts out there these days. But a book will just elevate you to that next level. So for some people, I'd say, do it soon. And for other people, I'd say do it later. I don't believe that writing a book is the answer to every problem.
Correct. Yeah, like I wrote my book, I think it was about 3 years ago now, and that was propelled onto the scene due to something impactful happening in my life. At the time, it would have made more logical sense for me to write a business book or a book around marketing, because that was sort of I guess you'd say, the badge that I was wearing, primarily in the industry at that stage. But I ended up writing a personal development book, which was purely around a framework that I created to live life to your full potential, right? Easiest way to sum it up. And it's called Right Now, Why Not You and Why Not Now? And it's about I had a friend pass away, massive, I was building a big business in another industry, something critically happened, and it sort of, the book got forced out of me, right? But why I share that is, there's so many people I know out there writing books, or they've already started writing books, but they have 25 followers on Instagram, and that, they don't have a database. And this is not to discredit that, but I think what people get blinded by, and I'd love to get your thoughts, is that they think a book is going to make them famous. Unless you get invited to Oprah's couch and she recommends your book, it's highly unlikely that it's going to be a bestseller unless you have a database and an audience and to be able to promote it to, right? A community. I was just lucky at the time we had a really large fitness base, which that book was more appealing to them at the time. So what's your thoughts around you could be the best kept secret, right? You can get the book, you can write it, you can publish it, but then you've got to get it out there. What are some of the best ways that you've been able to sell books? Because you've sold hundreds of thousands of copies over the number of years. What's been some of your best strategies to sell these books, get them flying off the shelves?
Yeah, so look, I think that you should want to try and get them into bookshops. Not that you're these days going to sell, tens of thousands of copies. Bookshops are kind of like a fraction of what they were 20
Yeah.
years ago, and
It's like
even
an
10 years
industry
ago
award,
now.
isn't it? Getting your book
Yeah,
in a bookshop.
yeah, and it's really just, even if you can get in there for a couple of weeks and just get a few happy snaps, and you
Yeah.
can say that you've ticked that particular box. It's a good thing to do. But then the real work kind of like kicks in terms of how do you get your book out there. Obviously, speaking is a great way to be able to leverage yourself. And if you're kind of in an audience of 100 people, you can probably sell anywhere from 20 to maybe 50
50
books
books, yeah.
as well. Especially if you start like selling them in packs, and so rather than just selling one book, you go, hey, here's 5. Here's for you, and here's for 5 of your friends. And especially if it's a book that people actually has brought appeal that people want to pass out and give to their friends or clients. And then the next kind of like the big idea, the thing that really kind of like changed the game for me is there was someone that sort of said, he's talking about how to promote books, and he said, what do you think is easier to try and sell one book to 1,000 people? That's, do you want to buy a book? Do you want to buy a book? Do you want to buy a book? It's a lot of conversations. Or to find one person that would buy 1,000 books, and you think, well, who's this person that would buy 1,000 books? Well, there's this thing called the promotions industry out there, multi-billion-dollar industry, where companies spend literally billions of dollars every year on basically crap, on squeegee balls, on hats, on bags, on drink bottles, on kind of like phone chargers or something along those lines, and just so they can slap their logo on it. The problem with these novelty items is a lot of them you just like chuck them in the bin, or they just don't get used. And so what you could do is approach these companies and sort of say, well, when was the last time that you gave your staff a Christmas gift? Or when was, what are you buying your staff for Christmas this year? Or what are you buying your clients? Like, when was the last time you gave your clients a gift? They're probably going to say never. And then you're going to go, okay, well, imagine if I could give you something that is actually worth $30. Like if they go into a bookshop, it's going to be $30, but I would sell it to you for $7. And that's like a whatever 70% discount. And you can then send it out. What do you think they'd say when they got a gift from you in the mail? Oh, wow, they'd be blown away. They'd be amazed that you can kind of, with postage, achieve that outcome for, $12 with change. And so that's a great way to be able to sell books in volume. So I actually did this with a client, a stockbroking firm, and a stockbroking firm said they had 4,000 clients. And so from a half an hour phone call, they said, okay, fine, we'll buy 4,000 books. So that was at $7. So I think it was like 32 grand or whatever we made from that. But it's just thinking differently. This is one person that bought 4,000 books. And so using it as promotional items, as gifts, as staff kind of like rewards or customer retention strategies can be a huge opportunity. So what you got to do is basically go, what's my book about? And who could actually benefit from getting that message out there to their clients or their customers or their staff. And that just opens up a huge opportunity. And I could give you dozens more examples of how to do that. But there's really lots of other things that we can talk about. But the whole idea is to go, how do I sell books, volumes of books, not just single books.
Yeah, when I launched mine, I had a probably about 20 different options, right? As you were talking about different packs of where you can buy a 20 pack, a 50 pack, you buy a 100 pack and you also get a day of me mentoring you. Actually, funnily enough, what got me on over 200 publications and even coverage over in the States, and actually it got picked up by Barnes and Nobles, was because I created a press release, and I actually had $1 million book. So I had one book that was worth $1 million. No one's bought it yet, but it was like, again, this is that whole concept, and we're on a bit of a theme here around leverage, right? How do we leverage something that we currently have and make it bigger than what it potentially is? So I had this $1 million book, and part of it was you got the entire, year experience. So there was a mansion here on the Gold Coast that you would get. You would also get, a high performance car and a number of other things, really just packaged together, which did what I needed it to do, which was to be able to get that, that press release out there into, picked up by the media. right? Because I think it's like anything, right? One thing I've learned in business, I think, is it's not so much about the product. You can have a good product. You don't have to have the best product out there. It's how are you getting people to see your product? How are you cutting through out there? And you know this just as well as anyone. You've worked with tens of thousands of business owners over the years and growing and scaling their business. What do you think are the biggest, on average, what are the biggest issues that people come to you with, like the biggest roadblocks that you see, with most business owners when they come to you?
Yeah, it sort of depends on what stage the business owner, is at. And obviously if they're, pre $100,000 in revenue, they probably haven't really got product market fit. They haven't built something that people kind of large enough number of people want, or they're not very good at marketing and then selling. So they really need to make sure that their product is something that people want. They need to get good at delivering it, and they need to get good at sort of like sales and marketing so they can get some momentum. People that are obviously anywhere between $100,000 and maybe $500,000, normally at that particular point they start to, at somewhere on that journey, they start to max out with regards to their particular time. They go from just doing one job to doing 5 jobs, and now and they're kind of like stuck between worlds because they're making enough money now that it's a decent business, but they're not making so much that they have to hire a team. And so, for them, they do have to hire a team, but it's how do you basically systemize the stuff that they do? How do they start stepping back from all the things that aren't absolutely critical? And how do they go from most business owners spend 80% of their time on non-income generating activities, and 20% of their time on income generating stuff. And so at some point, they've got to flip that equation so they can spend 80% of their time on income generating activities and 20% of the time on non-income generating. So it's about teaching them the skills and the confidence to be able to systemize and then start to employ people so they can start to get greater leverage. They start by obviously hiring a virtual assistant, so we help them to do that, and then they might hire a second or a third, and then eventually they might start hiring some local staff as well, depending on what type of business that they have, so they can start actually going up those levels. And then if they follow that path through and they've learned some good leadership skills and they're still keeping their eye on the ball of marketing and sales, they should crack the $1 million mark. And then once they crack the $1 million mark, then it's really all about scaling.
Yeah, just get started there.
Yeah, if you can do $1 million, you can do 5, and so then it's just basically doing what you do amped up. And so that's really about you getting really kind of like efficient with where you spend your time and building out your kind of like team. And now you're kind of moving into more sort of like automation, and you're having like a really good CRM, and you're having some type of data capture or lead magnet. You're nurturing kind of like leads. You're probably moving into leverage forms of selling, like doing videos or webinars, or things like that. You should be getting really good at your product delivery by that stage. So yeah, they're all things that will take you to that next kind of level of 5 to maybe even $10 million.
What was the hardest for you? What was the hardest level for you as you were going through that? Obviously, was it harder for you to go through to that first sort of 6 figures, or to break that million, or was it to break the first 10 million? What was your biggest struggle, you think, or the biggest area where things were I guess their hardest in growing a business?
Yeah, I think that you can just work really, really hard, and you got like 2 or 3 good people in your team, and you can get to that $1 million mark. But then when you start scaling up and you need to employ people, then as a business owner, oftentimes you are the star, or you're the artist, or you are the person that kind of like is really good at that magic of your business. If you're a really great graphic designer, or you're a really great someone that is fantastic at landscape, gardens, whatever your business is, then you now almost like to cross this chasm into now you're like a boss, and now you're a manager, and now you need to actually do job descriptions for people, and now you've got to do endless amounts of job interviews, and now you've got to do training, and now you've got to do performance reviews like every, and now you've got to, some staff members, underperforming, and now this person's kind of wanting a pay rise, and it's just this whole other amount of shit that you kind of have to deal with. And that's where a lot of people really get sort of like stuck. So for me, that was kind of like the, maybe the hardest part, that sort of $2, $3, $4 million mark, because you're kind of like, you're just like feel like your team's not big enough whereby you've got managers to do those things for you. So it's really coming back to you, and you're trying to be the star, and you're trying to be the manager and leader of your business. So you have to be everything for everyone, and that's where it's a really difficult phase.
Yeah. What's your thoughts around and look, I totally echo exactly what you just said there when it comes to growing and scaling. You can sort of hit that 4 or 5 people mark and things are still quite comfortable. And then once we're at about 20 people now here at Klaxon, and how this business has been built is polar opposite of how my, other companies have been built. And one thing though that I will say is, and it was actually interesting, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was sort of that entrepreneur who I wanted something massive, but there was also that part of me that didn't want to build something massive where I had to be showing up every single day for that, right? So I was comfortable with the 2, 3, having some virtual assistants, and then we got a small office. I was really comfortable with that. And then he said, it was really just a jab in the nose, really, where it was if you really want to have the impact that you're wanting to have, this needs to be bigger than you. And you're never going to be able to do it by yourself, and I have this conversation with a lot of, let's call, entrepreneurs who are the 1, 2, 3 man band, and they're like, nah, I just don't want to have to deal with people. It's just too hard and this and that. What was it an easy transition for you to go from that? Cause you're the star, you're the guy on the stage, you're calling every shot in the business. And then it gets to a point where it's like, oh my God, why don't I need to step out? Was the transition for you, quite seamless, or was it a bit of a struggle? What was that like for you?
Yeah, then to kind of really like once you get to 15 or 20 people, you sort of like have this it's not quite hands off. It's still going to require still issues and there's drama always. But if you didn't show up for work tomorrow, business would still be fine. If you didn't show up for a week, the business would still be fine. After about a month, then some cracks might start to appear. But, when you get to 15 to 20 people, it can it's not key person dependent. And that's where you need to get a good general manager that can kind of deal with 80% of the just day-to-day stuff. And by that stage, they're the ones that are doing the hiring. And, if someone kind of like is not performing, they're stepping in for you. They're dealing with, the accounts, that are overdue and all that type of stuff. So, having a good general manager, and then just having like whatever the all key functions are. For some of you, it's going to be, having a really good marketing manager, or having someone else that's really good at operations or events, if that's what you do, or someone else, if you're in trade business, a good leading hand that's going to be, out there on job site, doing, making sure that all of the contractors are doing their thing. So whatever your business is, you're going to need 2 or 3 kind of managers. And they then can have their teams underneath them, and then you don't have to deal with every individual person. You
don't have 20 direct reports.
Yeah, exactly. And they basically make stuff happen. So they're all running their teams. They're doing their own performance reviews now, and they're looking after the people that are underneath them. So if you can then kind of just cross over that that valley and get to the other side, then things start to become a lot easier again.
What's your thoughts around, like, obviously a founder-led business, which is built off, the personality of the person, but now you're moving into building a business, like Business Blueprint, stands on its own right now, even though it's still connected to you personally. How much of as you're growing as a business, do you believe the founder should be, and I guess it's probably very personally dependent on what they want, but how much effort of building your own personal brand is Dale Beaumont versus building Business Blueprint and the other businesses that you have?
Yeah, so it really depends on a range of different sort of like factors, and whether you want to be someone that's out there in the limelight, being the kind of like the face of everything. To be honest, I really couldn't kind of like care about the fame side of things, like but I do care about growing my business, and it's a tool to grow my business. And so I think founders should embrace their personal brands, because it is one of their marketing strategies that they're going to use. I don't think it should be your only strategy, because if you're doing that, then everything kind of revolves around you. But yeah, I just feel like I'm a tool. I'm a tool to serve the business, and everyone plays to their strengths. And the fact that I can speak and I can do videos and I can run events and seminars, and,
Yeah.
I've kind of like can, hold audience's attention for, for a whole day and still be energetic at the end. The fact that I can do that means I should be doing that because it's good for them, good for the business.
Is that what you enjoy doing most in your business? Is that what you enjoy doing most, being out on stage?
Not so much. Like I've done it now. I've done more than probably 1,200 presentations that I have done. So it's not like I need to do another to get more experience but I do enjoy helping people, and it helps people. It makes a difference. Every time I'm in front of a group of people, there's 3 or 4 people that come up to me and said, "Oh God, that's amazing. That's going to change my life." And thank you so much. This is been the best event that I've ever been to. And so I don't need to sort of do it for myself anymore. It's like I know my own content. I don't need to hear it again for me, but I do like the result, and I do like how it impacts people, and therefore I kind of keep doing it because I know it helps.
Yeah. In a lot of conversations I have with friends, especially, similar entrepreneurial, visionary type thinkers, we quite often go through phases of having different narratives that we're sort of, talking about. Imagine you're sitting around, with a handful of entrepreneurial friends right now with a nice glass of wine, red or white, whatever your favorite is. What do you think the conversation would be about? What would you want to be talking about mostly? Like what's on the top of your conversation list right now that you seem to be having a lot more, or it's maybe the flavor of the month or year or even decade? Like what would that topic of conversation be roughly?
Well, one of the things that I'm sort of like thinking about right now is perspective of time, and by that I mean that that this whole idea of being an entrepreneur, was kind of like sold on this kind of like perception that, the alternative to being an entrepreneur was you're going to work in a job. And if you work in a job, you're going to do the 9 to 5 thing, and you can do that for 40 years, and you're going to retire when you're 65 and hopefully, get a pension. But if you become an entrepreneur, then you can actually cut that down to, you can retire at 55, maybe even 50, maybe even 50, maybe even 45, maybe even 40 if you're really, really good. And so I'm kind of at that point now whereby I can go, look, I've done enough. I've got enough. I could stop. I could retire and do nothing. And so, part of me goes, well, I'm 38. If I work 2 more years, I'm done. That's it. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm 40 years of age. And with regards to modern technology, most of us now will be living at least to 90 and in relatively good health up until our 80s now. You think about, I know what, the hard life that my grandparents had, and, they were 60 and they looked like they were 70. Now you meet a lot of 60-year-olds and they look like they're 40, and they've got so much energy and so much health, and they've got, they're eating well and they're looking after their bodies, and we're not doing, we're not kind of in mines anymore, and we're not having to work the field. So therefore you'll probably live to 100, maybe even 110.
Yeah, they're talking about 2035. Do you follow Peter Diamandis and Human Longevity?
Yeah, that's right.
I obsess about that stuff. They're talking average lifespan out to 130, of healthy living. And it's like the first thing when I say to people, because I quite often ask people, the question of how old are you going to be when you die? Like I ran and they're like, whoa, geez, I don't know, maybe 80, right? It's like, why 80? Wouldn't you want to, like, and I obviously go deep on that conversation, but then I say, imagine living 130 years. And most people I'd say that to are like, oh, why would you want to live that long? Like, what? Why would you not want to live that long?
Yeah.
So you talk about this concept of time. Explain it.
So talking about like going, so the other thing that, is big in the entrepreneurial world is like, build your business to sell. And, you should be, you should be thinking about your end game, like right now. And, you should be leveraging yourself out, and you should be, hiring all people and systemizing the crap out of your business, and then you can sell it, And so, but my point is kind of, and then what? And then let's just say you did that. Like, what the hell are you going to do for the next 50 years of your life? 50 years. Like, so why are we so look, I have more of a sense of urgency than anyone. I'm very impatient. I want things done yesterday. And as entrepreneurs, we're like, how fast can we get to our goals?
Yeah.
But then it's like, what are you going to do for the next 50 years? And maybe, I wonder if you thought, if you're building a business, for the next 5 years and you want to sell it, what type of company would you build? Versus if you knew that you were going to have Klaxon for the next 40 years and you're going to run it for the next 40 years, what would you do differently? If you sell it and you're going to get a 4 times multiple, 5 times multiple, let's just say, that's really good. But if you ran it for another 10 years, you're going to end up making a lot more money anyway. So maybe the idea is going, what about if I had more of a long-term thinking, like Jeff Bezos thinking like 50 years ahead? And what about if I actually didn't cram it all into the next 5 years and kind of, kill myself in the process? What about if I had lots of breaks and lots of holidays and did all my bucket list along the way as well? Then it's just like, why are we in a hurry to
we're living in the now economy though, right? Everything is
it's true.
Social media. We've got to refresh, and if we don't have a notification in 10 minutes, it's like, what's going on? Like we're so obsessed and we're indoctrinated into this trance of everything has to happen now. Like, I mean, we've got a hot tap right in our kitchen here in our office, so an instant boiling tap. Mate, I'm in the morning, I'm like turning the hot tap on and it takes like 2 seconds. I'm like, I'm like, what am I thinking here? Like, this is instant boiling water, where I used to have to boil a kettle, for crying out loud. People in the old days used to go light a fire and boil this thing, or walk 2 days to get water. And because it's not instant, and I mean, I'm aware enough to know that was a thought that I had. And I'm like, okay, well, chill out, Brett. You're living in a pretty good time here. But you're right. It's like, we live in this economy where everything has to happen right now. And if it's not happening right now, we'll move on to something completely different.
Yeah. And so, is the idea just like, more, faster, grow, make more money? Or is it about going, it's okay to go a little bit slower, and it's okay, enjoy your life on the way through. And as long as you're, you've got enough money and you're comfortable, which is fine, you've got another 50 years to kind of like make money. So just,
I think the key thing there with
enjoy your life.
It's the serotonin and dopamine drip, right? We're drug addicts to our own chemicals. That's what we are. We're drug addicts to our own chemicals. And by going slow, like for me, thinking about going slow causes me like, oh my gosh, like, now again, within reason and depending on what it is, because I've definitely bought more into that ethos of, taking a little bit more time to do certain things, etc. But I actually get a lot of excitement out of, doing things fast and moving fast. And, when you say, what's happening with Klaxon maybe for 40 years, I'm going, I reckon in 50 years, I'm going to, like, in how I'm wired right now, I'm like, I play a game, right? Life is a game. I play it one chapter at a time, but I'll play that chapter so hard, right, that I'm like, geez, I could be, in Mars in 20 years for all I know. I'm just open to the possibility and opportunities. But it does come back to that concept of time, right? That we've only got a certain amount of time on this planet to actually do something. And I'll share with you the reason why I ask people, when are you going to die, right? And there's a lot more to it. There's a bigger concept to this, but it's, you ask someone and they're like, I'll ask yourself, right? We'll do this. So, you're 40, right? I mean, what age in your mind do you, and I mean, you're a smart guy, you've probably got a better answer than this, but what age in your mind, like, do you think that you'll probably pass away?
I reckon 120.
120. See, now that's great. That's a good North Star. Funnily enough, for some reason, that's my number. And then it leads me to challenge going, why are we even choosing 120, right? I mean, that's where we need a couple of bottles of wine. But the point there is like, so you go, okay, 120. So you've got another 80 years. You've got an entire average lifespan of a human being left to live, right? So you could go and do another 5-10 different things. Right. But we go to this, we'll add a little bit of context. So you've got, have you got both of your parents still around?
Yep.
And how old's let's choose mother or father?
My dad's 65.
Dad's 65. And how long do you think your dad's going to live till?
I would hope that he would live to 90, but he used to smoke a lot as a youngster, so it could be 80.
Right. So you look at this concept, right? So the average lifespan is that 85, 86 years old, right? Depending on what study you're looking at. But where all of a sudden we go, okay, 20 years left, touch wood, it's way more. But you go that, and then we go, okay, how many times do you visit your father every year?
Probably see him every week, actually. He just
Okay.
moves like around the corner.
Great. Well, that's bloody perfect. So you've already got that sorted. So for most people, they might see their parents a handful of times, maybe a couple of times a year. So you put it into perspective and you go, they got 20 years left because you think you've got a lot longer to live. So you've got time, but it's like, does other people have time? And I did this I had a young guy in the office and we're doing a podcast here. And, he's like, yeah, I see my parents about once a year. And, I travel to see them. And I said, and we refine, and he said they've probably got about, 15 to 20 years left. I said, so you're at best going to see your parents maybe 20 times. You're only going to see them 20 more times in your life. And that was like a holy shit moment. He's messaged me and he goes, mate, I've already gone and seen them like 5 times in the last couple of months since we did this podcast. But my point there again is time and perspective, right? Time and perspective. And we are in this chemically induced phase where we're searching for this next thing that we're not stopping and smelling the rose and actually looking at the thing that matters, and especially in entrepreneurship, it's I think it's the Achilles heel. We're so head down, bum up, trying to build and grow and scale the companies all day, every day, 15 hours a day. And one thing I've got to admire to you, and I find a nice little loop back into this, is that you do take a lot of time off. You've traveled to, mate,
85 countries.
85 countries.
So that's the one thing that I have done really well is really got that sort of balance between work and play. So we do 2 months work and 1 month traveling the world. 2 months work, 1 month travel, 2 months work, 1 month travel, and we've been doing that for now actually 12 years. So we've been to about 85 countries. We're heading off on Saturday. We'll be away for another 5-6 weeks, and we do that 4 times a year. So
with your children, two young boys, right?
Yeah.
So no excuses. Anyone going, I got kids. Bloody hell.
Yeah, exactly. we started, before they could walk, we were just traveling, and kids. You can't travel with kids. It's like kids are very adaptable, more adaptable than you actually, and they're portable as well. You just take them anywhere, and they just they just becomes their new normal. So people are like, how do your kids do the long flights? It's like they don't know any different. They just pack their bags. They on the plane.
They don't have longer legs as you do, so they can sleep well. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, mate, I'm aware of time here. We're going to have to do a part 2 and I think part 3. Next time we have to get you in the studio. But I want to ask this question because I ask everyone it because it's interesting to see what the response is. So assuming Mark Zuckerberg, right? Mark Zuckerberg, he's had a stressful last couple of weeks. He needs to go on leave, have a break. And he actually slides into your DMs and he goes, Dale, I need you to look after Facebook for me. In return for doing that, I'm going to allow you to create one post. It can be a video, it could be a message, whatever it is. You get one post and I'm going to pin it to the top of every single person's newsfeed, right? What does it say and why? I can give you a couple of minutes to think about that unless you need it. Don't need it. But what does it say and why? You've got one opportunity to share a message. It can be a video about that message. It could be a singular post. It can be a written text, whatever it is. What is it and why?
Yeah, I think that if I had to do one message, it's going to go out to the broadest, possible base.
All 2 billion people.
Yeah, all 2 billion people. I think that, when we can talk about, living in your dreams and all that type of stuff and whatever. And that would be, a nice kind of like message. But I just do think that at the end of the day, there is, especially now, like a lot more hate than ever before. So I think that if people just just loved more other people more, love their friends and love their parents and love their neighbors and, just be a lot more, just kinder and generous and supportive of everyone else. Because I just think that, as we, have become so connected to our smartphones these days and we've really stopped, caring about, we've become very self-obsessed, and I think that it's all about, like, life is not about what you get, it's about what you give, and it's about the impact that you're going to have, on others. And so just helping, telling people, to remind them about, that kind of universal message at the core of every religion, basically, that do unto others as you want done and to yourself. And so that really is the kind of the core, that core kind of like message of looking after your fellow man, woman, and love one another.
Mate, love it, and appreciate your time today, buddy. We'll get you back for a part 2 for sure.
That'd be great. Thanks so much. Great to talk to you.
Well, there we have it. Hope you enjoyed the episode with myself and Dale. As you can see, the conversation, I asked a question there that got a little bit deep, didn't it? But that's how we roll here. That is how we roll. Hopefully it gives you some perspective. And even more importantly, hopefully you do something about it, right? Because life is too short, trust me. We can sit here and talk about business and all those things, but what really matters is that we are making the most of our time that we have on this planet, all right? I'm going to actually do an episode around this. It's been a long time coming. So expect that in the next coming episodes, where I bring down the house and spit some facts and spit some, Brett. Sounds like a rap. I spit some facts. There we go. That's what I'm going to do. Spit some facts. Until next time, thank you so much. Please leave us a review if you can. You're awesome.